All right, let's talk about something we all go through: rejection. It doesn't matter if it's in your career, with friends, in your love life, it happens. But why? Why does it sting so much? And, more importantly, how do we deal with it without letting it just completely tank our confidence? Today, we're going to get into the psychology behind it and give you a real practical toolkit to bounce back, maybe even stronger than before. You know that feeling, right? That pit in your stomach you get from a super short, dismissive email? Or just that sting of being left out of something? It can feel intensely painful, almost like you got punched in the gut. So what is that? Are we just being dramatic? Or is there something real going on in our brains? Well, it turns out you are not just being dramatic. Science has a fascinating and honestly kind of validating answer for us. The pain you feel from rejection, it is absolutely 100% real. So let's get into the surprising science behind that social sting. So check this out. This is a truly groundbreaking finding from brain scan studies. Scientists put people in scanners and saw that social pain, the kind you get from being ignored or left out, it literally activates the exact same parts of the brain as physical pain. So when you say that hurt, you're not speaking in metaphors. Your brain is processing that emotional ouch in a way that's incredibly similar to how it processes a stubbed toe or a burn. And we can get even more specific. There's this one key area called the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex. Let's just call it the DACC. This is the brain's alarm bell for the emotional side of physical pain. It's what makes a physical injury feel distressing. And get this, it's the very same spot that lights up like a Christmas tree when you feel rejected. It's just wild, and it shows how seriously our biology takes our social connections. So why? Why on earth are we wired this way? Well, it all goes back to our evolution. Think about our early ancestors. For them, being part of a tribe wasn't just nice, it was everything. Getting kicked out of the group, that was basically a death sentence. You were alone, vulnerable. So our brains evolved this powerful alarm system to treat social rejection like a 5-alarm fire, a genuine threat to our survival. And that ancient programming, it's still running the show today. Now, because that pain is so intense, it can kick off this really dangerous psychological pattern. I like to call it the confidence spiral trap. It's this vicious cycle that, if you're not aware of it, can just eat away at your self-worth. Okay, so here's how this spiral works. Step 1, you get rejected. Fine. But step 2 is the really critical moment. It's when you start blaming yourself. You don't just think, oh, that wasn't a good fit. You think, there's something fundamentally wrong with me. And from there, your self-esteem takes a hit. Then you start expecting it to happen again. So what do? You start avoiding things, which means you get fewer chances to succeed, which of course can lead to even more rejection. And bam, the whole nasty loop reinforces itself. So what's the fuel that keeps this toxic spiral spinning? It's one word: rumination. This is when you're stuck on a mental hamster wheel, just replaying the rejection over and over and over in your mind. You analyze every little detail, you obsess over what you could have done differently, but it doesn't lead anywhere productive. It just deepens the emotional wound and keeps you trapped. All right, so that's the bad news. We know why it hurts and how we get stuck. But here's the really good news. Resilience isn't something you're born with. It's a skill. It's a muscle you can build. So let's open up your resilience toolkit and look at 8 concrete psychology-backed strategies to help you bounce back. First things first. This might sound almost too simple, but it is the absolute foundation. You have to just acknowledge that it hurts. Trying to brush it off or be tough and pretend you don't care, that never works. It just shoves the feeling down where it can fester. You have to give yourself permission to actually feel the sting. And the script you can use in your head is just that simple. Tell yourself, this stings. And that is okay. Just naming the feeling without adding any drama or judgment is incredibly powerful. It stops you from feeling bad about feeling bad, It's a totally natural human reaction. Strategy number 2 is all about a crucial mental shift. You have to actively, consciously unhook your sense of self-worth from this one specific outcome. A single event, one person's no, does not get to define your value as a person. It just doesn't. I love this quote because it sums it up perfectly. You have to start seeing rejection as just a piece of data. Maybe the information is about timing, or maybe it's about fit, or maybe it's about what the other person needs right now. But it is not a final cosmic verdict on who you are. It's just information. Okay, let's group the next 2 strategies together because they work so well hand in hand. Number 3 is cognitive reframing. This means you actively fight back against that first self-blaming thought. You force yourself to ask, okay, what are 3 other possible reasons this happened that have nothing to do with me being a failure? And while you're doing that, you practice number 4, self-compassion. I mean, seriously, talk to yourself the way you would talk to your best friend if they were going through the exact same thing. You wouldn't beat them up, so don't do it to yourself. Next up, strategies 5 and 6. Do not isolate yourself. Rejection makes us want to curl up in a ball and hide, but the true antidote is connection. Call a friend, talk to a family member. Just getting it out there can break that rumination loop and give you some much-needed perspective. And then circle back to that idea of using it as information. Is there a concrete lesson here? Can you improve a skill? This is how you transform a painful wound into a useful data point for next time. And our last 2 strategies in the toolkit are about taking action. First, recalibrate. After a rejection, your sense of competence can take a nosedive. So go do something you're good at. Remind yourself of your strengths. It could be anything, playing an instrument, finishing a project, even just organizing your closet. Recalibrate your sense of being effective. And then there's a more advanced technique. Desensitize yourself. It's called rejection therapy. The idea is to purposely seek out tiny, low-stakes rejections, like ask for 10% off your coffee. The barista will say no, and you'll realize you survived. It teaches your brain that a no isn't the end of the world. So those are fantastic tools for the heat of the moment. But what about the long game? How do we build a self that's just fundamentally more resilient? Let's talk about how you can fortify your inner armor so that the rejections of the future just bounce off a little easier. A really powerful idea here is something psychologists call self-concept clarity. Basically, it means having a really stable, clear sense of who you are, your values, your principles, your strengths. When you have that solid core, a rejection doesn't feel so earth-shattering. It's like someone's opinion is just one piece of data, but it can't knock down the entire building because your foundation is strong and isn't dependent on their approval. And it's also worth mentioning that for many of us, how we react to rejection is tied to deeper patterns, like our attachment style, which gets wired in when we're kids. It's like an internal blueprint for how safe we feel in relationships. But the good news is, even if that blueprint is a little shaky, you can absolutely work on it and build a more secure sense of self as an adult. So as we start to pull all this together, it really boils down to a choice. It's a fundamental choice in how you interpret the world. When rejection comes knocking, are you going to see it as a final, damning verdict? Or are you going to see it as just information? And this really leads us to a much better, much more realistic definition of confidence. Real confidence is not about creating a life where you never get rejected. I mean, come on, that's impossible. True confidence is the ability to walk into that storm, to feel the sting of rejection, and then to be able to return to your core self intact. And here is one last super practical tip you can use starting today. The next time you feel that sting, pay really close attention to your inner voice and try consciously to name the emotion. I feel hurt. I feel disappointed. Notice how different that is from an identity conclusion. I am a failure. That tiny shift in language creates a huge space between who you are and what you're just feeling in the moment. Because at the end of the day, rejection is going to happen. It's an inevitable part of a life fully lived. You can't avoid it. The only thing you truly have control over is how you respond to it. So the real question isn't if you'll face rejection, but how will you choose to use it to come back home to yourself?